Welcome to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Stefan Samuel. Here are the stories that we are following today, August 15th, 2013. In international news, all 18 sailors on blast-hit submarine feared death, Indian naval official says. Jesse Jackson Jr. is jailed for over misuse of funds. Manning takes stand, apologizes for hurting U.S. with leaks. Central African Republic on brink of collapse, says the UN. Details on these headlines and more when we return.
5 million customers use Leica Mobile for affordable international mobile calls, connecting over 2.5 million mobile calls daily, helping our customers stay in touch with their loved ones, whether they be in Asia, Africa, Europe, or the rest of the world. Every 5 seconds, a new Leica Mobile customer joins our growing family, helping you to make affordable international calls across the world. Leica Mobile. Call the world for less.
Welcome back to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Stefan Samuel. This segment of the news is sponsored by Total Caribbean Network. In international news, in New Delhi, all 18 sailors aboard an Indian submarine hit Wednesday by twin explosions and an intense fire are feared dead, an official said. The submarine had also been damaged in a deadly explosion in 2010 and had only recently returned to service. The officials, speaking on the condition of anonymity because divers had yet to recover any bodies, said the Navy believed there was no way anyone could have survived the intensity of the blasts and fire, which occurred when the diesel-powered submarine was docked at a Mumbai Navy base. The explosions in the submarine's torpedo compartment set a huge fireball into the air and sent nearby sailors jumping into the sea in panic. It is shaping up to be another embarrassment for India's military, which has been hit with a corruption scandal as it races to modernize its forces. Defense Minister A.K. Antony said some sailors were killed but gave no other details. It's a loss to all of us. It's a tragedy, Antony told reporters in New Delhi before leaving for Mumbai to assess the situation. Because the submarine was docked, a unit of Navy watchmen was on board when the blasts occurred and not the normal crew, Joshi said. A video of the explosions filmed by bystanders showed an enormous ball of red and yellow fire rising hundreds of feet into the air. About a dozen fire engines rushed to the dockyard and extinguished the fire in about 2 hours. Navy spokesman Narendra Vispute said the cause of the explosion is being investigated. The 16-year-old Russian-made submarine was hit by an explosion in 2010 that killed 1 sailor and injured 2 others. The Navy said that accident was caused by a faulty battery valve that leaked hydrogen, causing an explosion in the vessel's battery compact. The sub recently returned from Russia after a 2.5-year refit, overhaul and upgrade, said Raoul Bedi, an analyst for the independent Jane's Information Group. Joshi, the Navy chief, said it returned to India in April and had been certified for use by the Indian Navy. Russian ship repair company Zhevoy Doshka said the blasts were unrelated to its repair work. Vojoy Doshka said the submarine had been in active use and had logged 24,000 kilometers on 3 missions. India has steadily built its naval capabilities in recent years, spurred by its rivalry with neighboring China. But the country's military has encountered scandal as it attempts to bulk up. In February, India put on hold a $750 million deal to buy helicopters from Indian Aerospace and defense giant Finmecania and its British subsidiary Augusta Westland following charges of kickbacks and bribes. 3 of the 12 helicopters were delivered in December, and the rest have been put on hold. Jesse Jackson Jr. has been sentenced to 30 months in prison following his guilty plea over the misuse of $750,000 in campaign funds. The former Illinois congressman pleaded guilty to misusing campaign money on splurges such as a gold-plated Rolex watch, holidays, and mounted elk heads. His wife, Sandra Jackson, was also sentenced to a year in prison after pleading guilty to filing false tax returns. Mr. Jackson, who is 48 years old, the son of the civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson, served in Congress from 1995 until he resigned last November. Prior to his sentencing, Mr. Jackson apologized to the American people and his family and told the federal judge he hoped his son and daughter would not suffer because of his actions. "I misled the American people," he said in an emotional speech during which he became choked up and blew his nose. He also urged U.S. District Court Judge Amy Jackson to grant his wife probation, adding that if there were not possible, he would be willing to serve her jail time. Give me her time," he said. Mrs. Jackson admitted in a guilty plea earlier this year that from mid-2006 to mid-October of last year, she failed to report $600,000 in income that she and her husband earned from 2005 to 2011. The judge said that as a public official, Mr. Jackson was expected to live up to a higher standard of ethics and integrity. Mr. Jackson admitted in February that he and his wife used campaign credit cards to buy 3,100 personal items worth $5,882,772 from 2005 through April of last year. The expenditures included $6,857 in restaurant and nightclub bills, $6,588 for personal expenditures at sports clubs, for alcohol, and for dry cleaning. Purchases made with cards included a washer, dryer, range, and refrigerator for the Jackson's Chicago home, as well as multiple flat-screen televisions, Blu-ray DVD players, and DVDs for their Washington home. The couple also used campaign funds to pay for a 5-day health retreat for one of Mrs. Jackson's relatives. Under federal sentencing guidelines, Mr. Jackson faced a potential sentencing range of 46 to 57 months in prison, and the government recommended the lower end of that, 48 months. His lawyer, Reed Wintergarten, wrote that the former Congress's mental health might worsen under the stress of incarceration. Mr. Jackson has been treated for depression and bipolar disorder. U.S. soldier Bradley Manning took the stand Wednesday during his sentencing hearing for leaking classified material to WikiLeaks and apologized for hurting the United States and others. Manning gave an unsworn statement, which means he cannot be cross-examined by prosecutors. He began with an apology. Manning faces up to 90 years in prison for leaking the information while working as an intelligence analyst in Iraq in 2010. He said he understood what he was doing and the decisions he made. However, he said he did not believe at the time that leaking the information would cause harm. Earlier, an Army psychologist said Manning's private struggle with his gender identity in a hostile workplace put incredible pressure on the soldier. Manning eventually came out to Captain Michael Worsley and emailed the therapist a photo of himself wearing a wig of long blonde hair and lipstick. The photo was attached to a letter titled "My Problem," in which Manning describes his issue with gender identity and his hope to a military career would get rid of it. Worsley testified at Manning's sentencing hearing at Fort Meade near Baltimore. He said the soldier had little to no support base. Manning faces up to 90 years in prison for leaking the classified information. His lawyers contend that Manning showed clear signs of deteriorating mental health that should have prevented commanders from sending him to a war zone to handle classified information. Manning sat and listened attentively to the psychologist who had treated him, smiling occasionally. But his face tightened when Worsley talked about how guarded and hesitant Manning had been in Iraq to talk about his gender identity. He said some in Manning's brigade had difficulty understanding recommendations the doctor would make regarding the needs of some soldiers. Navy Captain David Moulton, a psychiatrist who spent 21 hours interviewing Manning at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, after his arrest, testified as a defense witness that Manning's gender identity disorder combined with narcissistic personality traits, post-adolescent idealism, and his lack of friends in Iraq caused him to reasonably conclude he could change the world by leaking classified information. The soldier was set to take the stand in his own defense later Wednesday. His sister and aunt are also on the defense witness list. After at least 46 international journalists and 78 spectators were in attendance. Many spectators wore Black Truth t-shirts. Most reporters watched a closed-circuit feed of the hearing in a nearby building. Other closed-circuit feeds were available to overflow spectators in a trailer outside the courthouse and another nearby building. Security was tight, barricades surrounded the courthouse, and those entering the courtroom or any of the viewing areas were scanned for metal objects and had their belongings meticulously searched. You are watching Caribbean Affiliate News. Stay tuned.